and welcome to episode number 79 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and more. This is Jason Finelli, and I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. And last week, if you listened to the show, you heard the WizWit Awards for 2021, my top 10 favorite games of the year, plus some other specialty awards. That was last week. We looked into the past, and this week we will look into the future at the year 2022, first with a couple of esports events that should be on your radar. Then we'll get into some games that should be on your radar, and finally, we will talk about the first big event of the year coming up this weekend, Awesome Games Done Quick 2021. As I like to do with the Games Done Quick marathons, I will highlight some of my some of the marathons that I am looking forward to the most coming up in this week's charity event. But before we do anything at all, let's get right into the 6 in 60 seconds. The Philadelphia Fusion have announced they will remain in Seoul, South Korea for the 2022 Overwatch League season, while also introducing Fury and Aim God as part of the 2022 squad. Sources report that the Call of Duty League is reverting back to 12 teams at the major tournaments after originally planning for only 8 at a time. Riot Games has introduced the latest agent coming to Valorant, Neon, equipped with electrified powers and a sliding mechanic. Elsewhere, Sony unveiled the PlayStation VR 2 at CES 2022, including brand new Sense controllers and the first game, Horizon Call of the Mountain. Also, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction will be added to Xbox Game Pass when it launches January 20th, with the Ubisoft Plus service also coming to Xbox consoles in the near future. And finally, reported by GamesBeat's Jeff Grubb, a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be unveiled sometime this year, potentially in the lead-up to the now digital E3 2022. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. And as always, the 6 in 60 seconds are brought to you tonight by the sponsor for Cheesesteaks and Controllers. That is Ghost Shaver. The Ghost Shaver is designed to feel like an extension of your arm, allowing any user to reach anywhere on the head, face, or body. The precision cutting system gives you a close and smooth shave every single time, thanks to 5 different rotary flex action super thin blades and a patented handle design that fits into the palm of your hand precisely. Go to ghostshaver.com to check things out and get yours. That is Ghost Shaver, a shave above the rest. Yes, folks, those are your 6 in 60 seconds for the week. Lots of big news finally coming out in both esports and video games. That VR2 announcement at CES from PlayStation caught me off guard. I was on my way to the gym when they started talking about this at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night. When I got to the gym, I quickly pulled out my phone and started banging out an article right on Google Docs there. Such is the life of a person covering the gaming industry. You never know when these things are going to break. Also, nice to hear from the Fusion, finally, in the first week of 2022. Not liking that they'll be in Seoul for the entire 2022 season, but I understand it. Hoping that they get another year under their belts over there, maybe bring home a championship that they competed so well for last year, and then come back to Philly as defending champs. But speaking of esports in 2022, there is a lot to look forward to already. I have looked at the upcoming esports calendar and checked off 5 different events that I think you should have a focus on at the moment. There are many, obviously. And if you go to websites like juke.gg or Esports Insider, they'll have the calendar of upcoming events. So you can pick your favorite game and find the esports competitions that you want to see. But for this one, I'm going with probably 5 of the biggest marquee leagues that there are, just to get the ball rolling in terms of esports in the year 2022. And the first one is in the League of Legends section of the esports universe, the biggest section, arguably, of the esports universe, and that is the LCS Lock-In Tournament starting January 14th. This is technically a preseason tournament, but it's more like a kickoff for the year sort of thing, where multiple teams from the League Championship Series, which is the North American section of the League of Legends esports community, will come together to compete in a preseason tournament that does have ramifications for the rest of the year. If you win the lock-in, I believe you get top seeding in the first group, or it allows it splits them into rankings. Let me just make sure I have it right here. So the 10 teams will be split into 2 groups of 5. Will play a single round robin against the 4 teams in their own group. All the matches are best of 1. Top 4 teams in each group will advance to the knockout stage. So that's from 10 to 8. The 8 teams that advance from the group stage will be seeded based on their performance. Then it'll be single elimination, 8-team tournament, with the quarterfinals being best of 3, and the semis and finals being best of 5. The groups have been decided with the matches kicking off on January 14th. Looks like Group A is 100 Thieves, Cloud9, TSM, I believe that's Golden Guardians, and FlyQuest, with Group B being Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, Luminosity, Dignitas, and one symbol that I do not recognize. That would be Immortals. Sorry about that. Immortals. So CLG, Dignitas, Evil Geniuses, Team Liquid, and Immortals in Group B. 100 Thieves, Cloud9, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, and TSM in Group A. So that is also always good. Loving seeing that. Each day of the first weekend, January 14, 15, and 16, we'll have 5 different matches for you to watch, and they will start at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and run all the way through the weekend. Pretty cool stuff. That is definitely something I will appreciate watching. League of Legends is a lot of fun. Once you start to learn the ins and outs of the game, you start to really understand what's going on and what you're looking at on the screen. It is a lot of fun to watch. I have not played it, so I'm actually kind of afraid to play it, to be honest. So I don't know what it's like to actually physically play it, but right now, watching the esports, the competitions, is great. So make sure the LCS lock-in is on your calendar when you're thinking about good esports events to start the year. Secondly, in the fighting game realm, because I could not talk about esports events without getting into fighting games at least a little bit, Capcom Cup, Capcom's annual Street Fighter V circuit, will be having 2 competitions based on the North American Eastern regions. Top 16 and top 8 will happen 1/15 and 1/16 respectively, so the same weekend as the LCS lock-in group stage. Plenty of esports to watch there. And you can watch some of the best Street Fighter players on the East Coast duke it out for Capcom Cup supremacy. Nothing like competitive Street Fighter, man. Competitive fighting games in general, I'm well on record of saying that's my favorite esport. But Street Fighter V, something about that game just really locks you in when you're watching people compete in it. So make sure that you check out that Capcom Cup NA East tournament over at twitch.tv/Capcom Fighters. That would be the place to watch that. If you just want to see how the best Street Fighter players in the world do their thing, the East Coast of North America happens to have some of the best players in the world, including the reigning Capcom Cup champion from its original structure, IDOM, who may even be in this one. So make sure you check that out for some of the best Street Fighter you will ever watch. The next one is one that kind of flies under people's radars. It's a little bit later into the year. We're getting into February now. This game, I feel like, is one of the most underrated esports that there is. It gets good coverage, don't get me wrong. Every website, every media outlet out there has people who covers this game, but yet somehow it's one of those like really dependable esports that you can always watch to be highly entertained, and yet sits in the mid to like lower mid tier of popularity, which never really made sense to me. That's Rainbow Six Siege's 6th Invitational, kicking off February 8th and going until February 20th. Their biggest tournament of the year is Rainbow Six Siege's 6th Invitational. And I am very, very excited to see how that's going to go this year. I just got into Rainbow Six Esports with the 6th Invitational last year. Had a lot of fun watching that. Really enjoyed seeing how these teams, kicked a ton of butt. Team Empire last year, who didn't end up winning the whole thing. I believe, if I remember correctly, the 6th Invitational went to the Brazilian team Ninjas in Pajamas, which is a great name. But Team Empire's early dominance and then the rise of Brazil at the end. Just a very, very fun tournament to watch. I recommend that you do so if you haven't already. We've already had some teams qualify for this year's Six Invitational, most of which are returning either from previous majors or from the Six last year. You have BDS Esports out of France, Damwon Kia Gaming out of South Korea, Dark Zero Esports out of North America, Elevate from Europe, FaZe Clan and Fury Esports from Brazil, Nadas Vincere from Britain, Ninjas in Pajamas also from Brazil, Oxygen Esports, Rogue, Sandbox Gaming from Korea, Rogue is from Germany, Sonics from America, soon to be based in the block at Nerd Street Gamers. They're in Philadelphia. Sonics Esports started in mid to western Pennsylvania, is now moving into the block as their permanent residence. So rooting for the Sonics, I will be, and you should too. Space Station Gaming, also from America. Team Empire, that dominant team from Russia that I mentioned earlier. Team Liquid from Brazil. Team Liquid's Rainbow Six team is actually Brazilian, believe it or not. North America, LCS, Brazil in Rainbow Six. Not quite sure how that works, but hey, good for them. Team One Esports, another great team from Brazil. And then there are one more team to qualify each from Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, and Latin America. So not all the teams are decided yet. We still have one team from each region that can qualify, and then we will get kicked off with this. Love the Rainbow Six Siege event. It's a great game, easy to understand as far as objectives and how you win and stuff like that, but very, very easy also to get entrenched in. So have February 8th marked on your calendar. Start watching some regional tournaments now so you see who qualifies, and get ready for a good time. Next up, we have the Call of Duty League. How can I not talk about the Call of Duty League kicking off very, very soon? This one kicks off with the Kickoff Classic on January 21st to the 23rd, the quarterfinals weekend of the LCS lock-in, so you'll have multiple things to watch that weekend as well. Back to 12 teams, thanks to the Boston conglomerate, Craft Pro Sports, headed by Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, and Oxygen Esports, the local team up there, are collaborating for the 12th Call of Duty team to be based out of Boston. Would not be surprised if it's called the Boston Patriots or the Boston Revolution or the Paul Reveres or the Boston Tea Party or whatever. They are taking the 12th spot that was freed up when Optic Chicago and the Dallas Empire merged to become Optic Texas. So that is now the 11th team. And then the 12th team is Boston. They will have that full slate at the Kickoff Classic. All the teams will be meeting each other in exhibition-style combat, exhibition-style matches. Nothing really on the line as far as I know. And then opening weekend, the first qualifiers for the first stage, February 4th to February 6th. Should be an exciting opening weekend. Should be an exciting season for the Call of Duty League. They're trying to go for a hybrid in-person and internet situation, with the internet being the qualifiers to the group stage, to the main stage major, and then the majors will be live in front of a crowd. No word yet on where those crowds will be coming from. I would love to see a Call of Duty major here in Philly, but we'll see what happens. So Call of Duty League kicks off January 21st. Definitely something to pay attention to there. And then finally, the Overwatch League. Not quite sure when that's going to start off. Obviously, the Fusion have announced that they are staying in Seoul for the year, which again makes sense. But I'm assuming that they're going to take a similar approach that they did to last season. If they have the 4 in-season tournaments with 3 weeks of qualifiers plus the 4th week being the tournament itself. They were able to get through the entire year and started in April. April to September, I think their season went. So long as they can, get started by April, which is when I think they will, right around Easter time is when they started last year, if I remember correctly. I think they'll get through the season, no problem. Looking forward to what the Fusion do this year. I have a feeling that some of these players, Carpe especially, is going to play with a chip on his shoulder, playing in memory of their fallen friend Alarm, who, again, unexpectedly passed away at the age of 20, just before the holiday season. So I I don't know what to make of the Fusion this year. I really don't. I need to see their full roster at first. Technically, they only have 3 players at the moment. But once they have more players, I'll have a little bit of an idea as to what's going on there. So those are your esports preview for 2022. Some big events to look forward to. Just the first couple months to get you warmed up for the rest of the year as a whole. We'll be back in just a second with some games to check out as you are getting ready for 2022. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode 79, taking a look at everything coming up in the year 2022. Started with esports events that you should keep an eye on. And as I was at break, getting myself more water and seeing what my new dog Cooper was barking at, apparently the actual Capcom Cup event scheduled for February 2022, an in-person event, has just been canceled due to COVID-19. The online qualifier I mentioned in the previous segment is still happening, but the live main event that they were touting for February is no longer happening. So that sucks. Get your shots, get boosted, stop being dumb. That's what I'm going to say about that. Moving on now to the year in video games themselves. There are a lot of games to talk about. Definitely some that should be front and center in your mind when you're thinking about things to play, things that you're going to be putting onto your backlog, things to shape your entire gaming time around, even if these games seem good enough for you. Now, I'm going off of what is currently listed on my favorite resource for looking up when games come out, the Wikipedia page for 2022 in video games. It is an absolutely amazing resource. If you ever want to know when something's coming out, this website does it for me, and it should do it for you. So there's some free advertising for Wikipedia that I didn't have to ask you to donate $3.50 in a top bar above the article for. So getting into the month of January, we've had a couple of announcements for some primary, like smaller indie games like Nobody Saves the World by Drinkbox, who made Guacamelee, has a date of January 18th. Will be on Game Pass Day 1. Windjammers 2, 2 days later on January 20th from .emu, coming to all the consoles. Very excited for that one. But also on January 20th, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, the new take on Rainbow Six Siege, where instead of competing against one another, in 5-on-5, you're now doing 3 people going in and trying to help friends or help other agents from this insidious, like, alien parasite sort of thing. It's an interesting take on how Rainbow Six usually works. Used to be called Rainbow Six Quarantine, name changed for obvious reasons. That was also announced to be on Xbox Game Pass Day 1, January 20th, as I mentioned in the 6 and 60 seconds. So if you have Game Pass, already have two great new games to think about in the middle of January. And then at the end of January, for the Nintendo fans out there, you are not forgotten, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Pokemon Go's Breath of the Wild, or Xenoblade Chronicles, depending on your taste. Open world Pokemon action set in a feudal Japan sort of setting. It's a region we've already seen in Pokemon, the 4th generation region of Sinnoh, Diamond and Pearl. But now set in feudal Japan as opposed to more modern times. Definitely going to be a different take on Pokemon. Definitely going to be something we haven't played before. And definitely something I have my eye on personally as a longtime fan of that franchise. So, Pokemon Legends Arceus, I have my eyes on you. And you, the listener, should too. Moving on next to Dying Light 2 Stay Human, coming February 4th. Action role-playing survival horror game from Techland, coming to every console, and you can even stream it on your Switch. I've had a lot of time with this game in the lead up to its release. I've previewed it. Flew out to San Francisco in November to play 4 hours. I've sat in at every E3 demo they had, 2018, 2019. I have spent a lot of time around this game. And every time I see it, I get more and more intrigued by it. I am very excited to hear that it's going gold and it will make February 4. I really want this to be as impressive as a final product as it was impressive in those demos. Now, obviously, demos like the press ones that are hosted sometimes bring out the best in those games. Like they're a part of the game that the devs really know are going to be a highlight for some people. Obviously, it's them bringing their best foot forward. There is a a sniff of marketing in those press events. But what I have seen, based from first the sit-in videos at E3 2018, 2019, then getting my hands on it last November, is consistency, increased quality with every new demo or every new video, and a more and more interesting world and story. So I'm hoping that trend continues to go up, and Dying Light 2 is one of the premier games of 2022 when it comes out in February. I want to be talking about Dying Light 2 in December, the same way I talk about it when it comes out and burns people and blows people's minds, in February. Hoping that's the case. Looking forward to it. Please don't let me down. Next, on the 8th of February, we have Sifu. This is a beat 'em up by Slowclap, who made Absolver. Definitely know their way around kung fu and martial arts style combat, but they're really leaning into it in this one. And this is an indie game that should be crossing your mind there in the beginning of February. Also crossing your mind should be Crossfire X. Crossfire is a long time, very popular franchise in China and Korea. Finally coming over to the States as Crossfire X. It's a multiplayer game by Smilegate with a single-player campaign made by Remedy Entertainment of Alan Wake and Control fame, which is why it's on my radar. I like what Remedy does, always have, always will, so I might give that a shot just based on their pedigree alone. A little further into February, the 17th, we have the King of Fighters 15, the first big fighting game of the year. King of Fighters, long-standing fighting game franchise, hence the 15 in the title. Goes all the way back to 94, the first time SNK's characters crossed over into one fighting game. And this 15th one is one that I am very excited for myself. We get new trailers every Wednesday with new characters, and I am really enjoying what I'm seeing. Bring it on, please. February 18th, though, this is the one of the first couple months of the year I personally have circled on my calendar. If you listened to the WizWit Awards last week, you heard what the most anticipated game of 2022 is for me. If you didn't, I'll tell you now, it's Horizon Forbidden West. This game, I hope, is going to knock my socks off. The first one did. The second one's looking bigger and better. New trailer that showed up on Monday with the tribes was really cool. Gimme Horizon. I'm so looking forward to that game. February 22nd brings us Destiny 2 The Witch Queen, the next giant expansion for Destiny 2. Very, very much looking forward to seeing how people react to that. Destiny 2 is one that I have always sat back and watched people play. I love Destiny 1. I finished the Destiny 1 campaign, the original campaign. I loved that game. But Destiny 2, I never sunk my teeth into. And I feel like now that ship may have sailed for me, just because there have been so many expansions, and because, for me, Fortnite exists, and that's my go-to when I have a little bit of time to play. So, if the Witch Queen has enough of a story arc that can really pull me in, and I'm able to go play all the old stories, I may give it a shot. But we'll see what happens later on in 2022. The next week, February 25th, Elden Ring, a game thought to be forgotten since it first debuted in E3 2019, all of a sudden is a month and a half away. We're finally going to get Elden Ring, originally slated for January, but was delayed a month due to COVID-19 and stuff like that, which, fine. But From Software, Hidetaka Miyazaki fans will have something to sink their teeth into. George R.R. Martin contributed to the story, built the world, and we're all going to get to die in it many, many times. Very much looking forward to that. Also, quick aside, was writing an article about Elden Ring, and I accidentally said Hayao Miyazaki instead of Hidetaka Miyazaki, and that would be a completely different type of game if the creator of Kiki's Delivery Service and Ponyo and Princess Mononoke was developing Elden Ring. So, nope, that's not what that is. Evil Dead the game, 4-player co-op featuring Bruce Campbell as Ash and some other iconic people and creatures from the Evil Dead franchise. Good for the movie heads if you want something to bring back the glory days of horror. That is one that you should have your eye on. And now we're getting into March. We're already into March with games that you should be checking out. PS4 and PS5 fans, there are two. One is more of a interest. The second one is a definite. First one, Babylon's Fall, action role-playing game by Platinum Games. unlike anything they've ever done before. It's it's action heavy. It's their pedigree that they've established with games like Bayonetta and Astral Chain and stuff like that. But this is more of a co-op sort of adventure game, and there's some weird mechanics in there that people are like, I'm not sure about this. So that's one to just keep your eye on to see how people are reacting to it. But Gran Turismo 7, oh boy. If you're a PlayStation fan and a racing fan, Gran Turismo 7 is probably number one with a bullet on your list of games to play, and I can see why. Bringing back a lot of the modes from previous games that people loved, plus having a full, robust online multiplayer. That's going to be a good one. I think that's going to be one that really knocks some people's socks off. Whether we'll get to the level of Forza Horizon 5 remains to be seen, but I think GT7 is going to get there, at least more so than GT Sport did on the PS4. The same day, for Nintendo Switch fans, tactical role-playing Triangle Strategy, made by the folks who made Octopath Traveler, in that HD 2D style, where it's like very detailed, pixelated worlds with characters who are also like pixelated moving through them. That one looks awesome as well. It's one that I have my eye on, but I want to play Octopath before I play Triangle Strategy. We'll see if I can make that happen. Indie darling Tunic, which has been an indie darling for damn near 5-6 years now, finally coming out on March 16th. Imagine playing an original Legend of Zelda game from the NES or Super Nintendo days, but as a cute little fox with a sword. That's basically the only way I really need to pitch it to you, and I think you'll get the gist from there. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, just a different take on Final Fantasy. They're going more of a Dark Souls route, not Final Fantasy 16. It's a different game, but one that I think could be good. It's very memeable in its demos and videos so far, but we'll see how the final product ends up. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is basically Borderlands and D&D mixed together. That one could really be a big surprise too. I mean, not so much of a surprise. Borderlands is a popular franchise, but it could be one of those games that brings the entire franchise up even another notch. Just because of the premise. You're still doing the looter shooter multiplayer big world thing, but now you have this dungeon master essentially who's talking you through the game. It's an interesting concept, and I'm hoping that Gearbox can pull this off and really impress us with this. But we'll see. We'll see what Tiny Tina's Wonderlands has to bring on March the 25th. And those are the first 3 months of the year, but there are still plenty of games to talk about, but have dates, and some that are still considered TBD as of this recording. So for ones that have dates, April 8th, Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl is one we can get into later on. Forspoken, also from Square Enix by their Luminous Productions team. That's one to keep an eye on. The Saints Row reboot is slated for August. The indie game survival horror Scorn is due in October. And then you have Starfield on November 11th, Bethesda Game Studios' first new IP in 25 years, taking on a brand new genre for the first time with a brand new engine. If a lot of people would say that their most anticipated game is Starfield for 2022, and the only reason I didn't in my WizWit last year is because I don't know that I necessarily trust that date. I have a feeling it's going to get pushed to 2023. Could be wrong. They have the date set now for nearly a year, and it'll be a year and a half since they announced the date if it does make that date, but just a little hesitant. We'll see how that shakes out. And then as far as games that don't have specific dates yet, man, I could be here all day with things that are slated for this year that don't have dates as of yet. Bayonetta 3 is a big one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge for the retro heads is a big one. Horror fans, the Callisto Protocol, go back and watch those trailers. Diablo Immortal for the mobile fans and people who just like to complain. DNF Duel for the fighting game fans. Dune Spice Wars for the 4X real-time strategy. Everspace 2 for the space epic crowd. God of War Ragnarok is huge. Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad are huge if they both come out this year. It's going to be an amazing year for games. I just have a feeling there's a lot of good names here that if all of these games come out in 2022, we could be talking about one of the biggest years in all of video game history. just with the quality of games that are coming out and the sheer quantity of quality games, I should say. There is a lot of titles here that will be very, very interesting upon their release. Ones that I definitely have my eyes on. So my wallet is already crying, and yours should be as well. So make sure that you plan accordingly. There you go. That's the games I'm looking ahead to in the year 2022. Basically everything on the calendar so far. We will revisit this at a later time, maybe focusing on Q2 and Q3, or just do like a half-year check-in in July, just to see where things are, what's come out, what's been delayed, so on and so forth. We'll get into that at a later time on a later episode of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, maybe close to episode 100, a little over 20 weeks from now. But for this episode, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we will talk about Awesome Games Done Quick 2021, the major charity event for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, raising money for that great organization. I will talk about what runs I am most excited for leading up to it. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode 79, looking ahead to the year 2022. Technically, we already did that. We did the games in the last segment. We did the esports in the first segment. So now we're going to hyper-focus into an event coming up actually this coming week, starting Sunday of the 8th of January, and that, or 9th of January, excuse me, and that is one of my favorite events of the year, actually 2 events of the year, but the first one is coming up, and that is Awesome Games Done Quick 2022. The speedrunning marathon is back and better than ever, starting again Sunday, January 9th at noon, and going all the way through the week, not stopping until next Sunday, the 16th, with multiple games being played, multiple impressive speed runs I expect to see. Some brand new games that just came out, some older games, and some games with caveats that are absolutely out of this world. So let's get into a couple of the runs that I am most excited for coming up in this year's marathon. Sunday actually has a couple of big ones, starting with 2 of my favorite games of all time, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest, and Mega Man 2. Someone's trying to beat Donkey Kong Country 2 in 48 minutes. Someone's trying to beat Mega Man 2 in 32 minutes, the difficult setting, not just the regular difficulty. So very excited to see that. And in between those two are 2 games that came out in 2021. Deathloop won Game of the Year. I'm sorry, didn't win Game of the Year. Won Game of the Year at GameSpot, among other places. Someone thinks they can beat that in 25 minutes. We'll see about that, sir, or madam. And then someone else, right after that, Axiom Verge 2 in 13 minutes. So a couple of interesting runs there for games that are brand new, with Death's Door coming a little later on. Very big 2021 presence in the first day of AGDQ this year. That's pretty cool. But in the middle of all this, there's a bonus game. So the way bonus games work, if you haven't watched GDQ before, or if you haven't heard me talk about it previously, the way it works is if enough money is raised by a certain point in the event, they will have a bonus game, and you can donate towards the bonus game every time you donate, with all donations going to the Prevent Cancer Foundation, which is really cool. The first bonus game is for Sunday. They're trying to get one in quickly. Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, fantastic game, one of the best ever made. Going through the tanker section, which is the section at the beginning of the game where you play as Solid Snake, but the speedrunner named Apache Smash is going to go through it completely blindfolded. That is impressive. If you want to donate to Prevent Cancer and also see someone go through a part of Metal Gear Solid 2 completely blindfolded, which includes a boss fight, and then trying to sneak through all the different enemies, that's a way to do it. So if you have to be ready right out of the gate, though. It starts on Sunday, so it's going to be a quick turnaround to make that bonus. I want to see Metal Gear Solid 2 blindfolded. How about you? So get your donations in early if you want to see that. Monday, we are moving into a couple of classic games. ActRaiser, when you wake up on Monday morning. Gunstar Heroes on the Genesis, another very, very good game. Kirby's Dream Land 3, a couple more 2021 games in Kenna Bridge of Spirits and Chicory A Colorful Tale. right there on Monday morning. Crash Team Racing, Monday afternoon. Mega Man X4, one of the best Mega Man X's ever made. Ori and the Blind Forest and Super Mario Galaxy, always fun runs to watch. This Super Mario Galaxy one actually looks to be a race between 4 different speedrunners, Tibbs, Hardcore Gaming, Jai, and Mr. Cloud Kirby, going for an any % Luigi race on the Wii U specifically. So that'll be one to keep an eye on, just because races are always fun, go right down to the wire. Then we have some classic games on Tuesday on the overnight. You'll have to catch these unless you're up at 3 a.m. On Tuesday. You have to catch these in the replay. But Marathon Durandal, the game that basically led to Halo, Astalon Tears of the Earth, Bucky O'Hare on the NES, Space Gulls, which I haven't heard of in years. Just some interesting names coming up on Tuesday. Dead Rising, always a fun run to watch. Faith Chapter 2. Faith is a very weird game that you can find online. That would be one I suggest you take a look at. Looks like there's a horror block or a scary block of some kind going Tuesday night into Wednesday overnight. A lot of horror games have come up. Now, this also is, I don't think we're there yet, but this is also the year where they do Awful Block, where they just take a bunch of really bad games and run those and make fun of them the entire time they run them. So I'm very, very, very much looking forward to that. It's always a good time. One of the highlights of AGDQ, if you've never watched it before. Getting into Wednesday as a block of Sonic, starting at 8:15 with Sonic R, Sonic RoboBlast 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Sonic Adventure DX, one right after the other from 8:15 all the way to 10:30 with Sonic games there. So if you like Sonic, you want to see how some of the best Sonic players in the world go through them, that's a way to do that. And then we have a interesting format coming up after that at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Pokemon Crystal, but a key item randomizer. Now, if you don't know what Pokemon a randomizer is, basically people have quote-unquote hacked the game so that all of the items, or in this case all the key items, in Pokemon Crystal are randomized. So you may get an item that you're not supposed to get for until the end of the game at the very beginning, which could help you, shortcut through the game or something like that. It's an interesting scenario, are randomizers. There are some good randomizers out there for Super Mario, some good randomizers out there for Legend of Zelda. In fact, one year there was a randomizer. It was Metroid, I think it was Super Metroid and Link to the Past randomizer, and they were somehow linked, no pun intended, so you could earn items for Super Metroid in Zelda and vice versa. I have to go back and see how that worked, but that's really, really cool. So if you want to see how a randomizer works for Pokemon, Wednesday, Pokemon Crystal, there was a key item randomizer coming up there. We have Halo 5 Guardians getting a full game legendary run in an hour and a half. That'll be fun. A 3-way race in Diddy Kong Racing for all trophies in 26 minutes. That's not a long time for that whole game, which, sure, I'll dig that very, very much. Diddy Kong Racing, very underrated game on the Nintendo 64. If you've never played that, you should. And now, here we go. As I was talking about earlier, now we're getting into the awful block. Thursday overnight, is going to be the awful block for AGDQ 2022, starting with Zelda's Adventure on the CDI, then going to Garshasp the Monster Slayer on PC. I've never heard of that in my life. Tasmania on the Game Gear, Mega Mem 2 on the PC, Captain Novelet on the SNES, The Simpsons Bart's House of Weirdness on the PC, Darkman for the NES, Sonic Jam on thegame.com. Oh boy, that's a name I haven't heard in forever. Zadette on the PC, Cranked Up on the PC, and then Discworld, which I don't think is part of that. I think Discworld is coming back down to earth. But, oh man, that's shaping up to be a great awful block. Best part is when the game, I've never heard of the awful games before. You just come in completely clean and see how insane everything is. But that's going to be followed up with a Castlevania block, Lament of Innocence, Dracula X, Circle of the Moon, and Castlevania Chronicles. So it'll take that bad taste out of our mouth, which I'm okay with. A little later on Thursday, we're looking at Lost Judgment, which just came out in in August. A 3-hour run there. I don't know how these guys do it so fast, but they do. A Resident Evil Village run, the Village of Shadows, which I believe is the very beginning of the game. They're going to get through in 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's pretty impressive there. It Takes Two, which did win Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2021. A 2-hour co-op run there. Oblivion, a no-skip run in 35 minutes. That'll be interesting. And then that's really, what we're looking at here, wrapping up Friday and Saturday. Dark Souls, Super Mario 3D Land, Pokemon Omega Ruby, and Alpha Sapphire. There are 2 runners racing, one in Omega Ruby versus Alpha Sapphire. That'll be interesting there. We have a Hades run on Friday, and then on the final day, Saturday, Tetris Attack, Blazing Chrome is a very cool retro-style game. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom was I don't know if that's rehydrated or not. It looks like Xbox, so it's not. Earthbound, any percent in an hour. Earthbound, always a classic game to watch. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, all bosses with with a glitch that has no exploration, so it's just boss after boss after boss. A blindfolded run of Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which is a Dark Souls style game that came out in 2019. To play that game blindfolded and beat it in less than 3 hours is quite a feat, but there they are. That's what they're going for. And then the final game of the marathon is Metal Gear Solid, all bosses on extreme difficulty in an hour and a half, and that will wrap things up for the week. Awesome games done quick. You can find at twitch.tv/gamesdonequick. If you've never watched the marathon before, I highly suggest you do so. It's a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to see how these runners just completely tear these games apart, especially if it was a game that you really grew up with and you remember playing over and over and over again. You thought you were good, but going through the paths like you were supposed to, doing the things you were supposed to do. These guys, the way that they can glitch through these games and the way that they can find new things to really be excited about is out of this world. I really love this event. And not only that, but it's taking this speed running and applying a good cause to it by raising money for a different charity every single time they do this. This one is for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, as I've said. But then Summer Games Done Quick that they hold over the summertime. It was in August last year, normally in like the June, July area. Gives donations to Doctors Without Borders. And then they have some that do other charities as well. It's a really cool, a really unique, a really fun event that does good while highlighting cool people that play cool games in a really, really interesting, fun, and cool way. And it's hard not to like that. It's hard not to get excited about it. It's hard not to, really get behind what they're trying to do here. All the money they raise, like I said, goes to charity. They don't even see any of it. It goes straight from our pockets to the charity. They have raised upwards of $3 million a marathon for the last couple of years. Even in a COVID-19 pandemic world, they were raising multiple millions of dollars for their charities, which is wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful, and to be commended. Very, very much so. So make sure you have twitch.tv/gamesdonequick in your sights starting on Sunday, and you can see some of the best gamers in the world tear these games apart and leave you baffled by the things that you could do in your favorite game that you may not have even known you were able to do. And with that, we are at the end of episode number 79 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. If you're listening to these words at the end of the show, I am very appreciative that you have made it to the end. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope that there are some things on here that you will consider in the year 2022, whether it's games I mentioned in the second segment or esports events that I mentioned in the first, or checking out the speedrunning marathon coming up this week, twitch.tv/gamesdonequick. It is a worthy cause. It's worth your time. It's worth your attention. I highly suggest that you tune in, see where the donation number is, maybe throw some money their way if you have it, and just support these wonderful people doing wonderful, wonderful things. So with that, I am off for the week. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you're in an area that's about to get some snow, watch out for that. So try and stay warm. Have a fantastic weekend. Like I said, have a great week right behind it. And we will be back next week with episode 80, including a very interesting interview from a man with a concept that we have never heard before in this particular setting. So, thank you again for listening. Talk to you next week. Goodbye.